The Clone Wars raged across 1,000 systems. The Jedi were stretched thin. The Republic was slowly bleeding itself to death beneath the weight of endless conflict. Entire sectors burned while senators argued. Countless worlds chose sides. Heroes rose. Empires waited to be born. Yet even as Jedi Masters and Sith Lords maneuvered across the galactic stage, neither side understood that a force entirely beyond their understanding was about to enter the galaxy. No hyperspace signature appeared on any scanner. No ancient prophecy warned of the event. No Jedi vision foresaw the arrival. Somewhere beyond the known dimensions of existence, a man who had challenged gods, conquered nations, mastered science, and bent sorcery to his will was about to collide with a galaxy far, far away. His name was Victor Von Doom, and his arrival would alter the fate of countless worlds. If you enjoy stories where powerful characters enter the Star Wars galaxy and completely reshape history, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow Star Wars fans, comment below with which character you would like to see enter the galaxy next, and most importantly subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss future what-if adventures. Far beyond the borders of the Republic, beyond the Outer Rim territories where star charts became unreliable and civilization gave way to endless darkness, reality itself split apart. The phenomenon began as a single point of impossible light hanging motionless in empty space. At first it resembled a distant star. Then the light expanded. Space folded inward around it. Gravity twisted. Invisible waves rolled through the surrounding void. Nearby asteroids shattered into glittering debris without ever being touched. Ancient dust clouds evaporated. Entire regions of space seemed to bend as though existence itself had become fluid. The dimensional breach expanded until it stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Within its center, storms of energy spiraled violently. Then something emerged. A figure. A single armored man. Victor Von Doom fell from the collapsing rift like a king cast down from heaven. The dimensional wound detonated behind him. For a brief moment, the darkness of space became brighter than a star. Then silence returned. Doom's armor absorbed most of the impact, but even his advanced systems struggled to process what had happened. Warning symbols flashed across his helmet display. Several dimensional sensors reported readings that made no scientific sense. Arcane monitoring systems produced equally confusing results. His last memory was of a dangerous experiment combining technologies and mystical energies that should never have been merged. Doom had intended to seize knowledge beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. Instead, reality itself had betrayed him. His armored body drifted through space while countless calculations raced through his mind. He was alive. His armor remained functional. His reactor core still operated. His consciousness was intact, which meant adaptation could begin immediately. Within seconds he located nearby gravity wells. Several planetary signatures. One inhabited world. Primitive communications traffic. Unknown language structures. Unknown stellar cartography. Victor Von Doom's eyes narrowed behind his mask. He was no longer in his universe. The realization disturbed him far less than it would have disturbed most men. Doom had witnessed alternate dimensions before. He had battled beings capable of reshaping realities. He had traveled through realms that defied natural law. Being stranded in another galaxy was merely a problem requiring a solution. A faint burst of propulsion emerged from his armor. His trajectory shifted. He accelerated toward the nearest inhabited planet. Hours later, the world of Veshkar rotated beneath him. The planet sat on the edge of Hutt-controlled territory. Officially it belonged to no major government. Unofficially it belonged to whoever possessed enough weapons to enforce ownership. Smugglers used it as a staging ground. Criminal syndicates laundered credits through its cities. Slave traders operated openly. Mercenaries arrived daily seeking contracts. Corruption was not merely common. It was expected. As Doom descended through the atmosphere, countless sensors detected the unusual object entering the sky. Most assumed it was a damaged starfighter. Others believed it was space debris. No one imagined a single armored man was falling directly toward the planet. A violent sonic boom echoed across the desert. Sand exploded upward. A crater hundreds of meters wide appeared. Dust rolled across the landscape. Several nearby scavengers rushed toward the impact site hoping valuable wreckage had survived. Instead they found something far more dangerous. At the center of the crater stood a towering armored figure. Motionless. Silent. Watching. The scavengers hesitated. Instinct warned them something was wrong. One reached for a blaster. The armored stranger raised a single hand. Green energy erupted. The weapon instantly melted into molten slag. The scavengers screamed and stumbled backward. The others fled immediately. Victor Von Doom watched them disappear into the distance. The locals were primitive by his standards. But they confirmed one important fact. Civilization existed here. Which meant resources existed. Information existed. Power existed. And where power existed, Doom would eventually understand it. Several hours later, rumors began spreading through nearby settlements. Stories of a mysterious armored giant. Stories of impossible technology. Stories of a man who survived a fall from orbit. By nightfall, those stories reached the ears of local criminal organizations. Most dismissed them. One did not. The Black Fang Syndicate controlled much of the surrounding territory. Smuggling, extortion, protection rackets, slavery, weapons trafficking. Their operations generated enormous profits. Their leader, a ruthless Nicto-crime lord named Garvek, had survived decades by recognizing opportunities before others did. An unknown armored warrior represented either a threat or an asset. Either possibility required investigation. Garvek dispatched dozens of mercenaries. Orders were simple. Capture the stranger alive. Kill him only if necessary. The mercenaries located Doom shortly before sunrise. He stood atop a rocky plateau overlooking a desert canyon. His armor had already begun analyzing local communications. Primitive radio traffic. Regional trade networks. Criminal transmissions. Fragmented star maps. The information painted a predictable picture. Another civilization crippled by weak leadership. Another galaxy ruled by incompetence. Another opportunity. The mercenaries surrounded him. Speeders blocked every visible escape route. Heavy blasters aimed directly at his chest. Garvek himself emerged from one vehicle. Confidence radiated from the crime lord. Numbers had solved most problems throughout his life. Today would prove no different. Unfortunately for Garvek, Victor Von Doom was not most problems. The crime lord demanded surrender. Doom did not move. The mercenaries advanced. Doom remained silent. Garvek interpreted the silence as weakness. It was a catastrophic mistake. The first blaster bolt struck Doom's armor. It accomplished nothing. The second bolt vanished against an energy shield. The third never reached him. A green barrier erupted around Doom's body. Dozens of incoming shots ricocheted harmlessly away. Confusion spread through the mercenary ranks. Their confusion lasted only seconds. Then Doom attacked. Energy blasted outward from his gauntlets. Vehicles exploded. Weapons disintegrated. Sand transformed into glass beneath concentrated bursts of power. Mercenaries scattered in panic. Some attempted organized resistance. Others simply ran. Neither strategy mattered. Victor Von Doom moved through them like a force of nature. His armor amplified every strike. His shields absorbed every attack. His tactical systems predicted enemy movements before they happened. Within minutes, the battlefield belonged entirely to him. Garvek watched in horror as his army collapsed. This was not a warrior. This was not a bounty hunter. This was not a Jedi. This was something else entirely. Something worse. Something that fought with absolute certainty. The crime lord attempted escape. Doom extended his hand. Invisible energy seized the fleeing speeder. The vehicle rose into the air. Garvek screamed. The speeder twisted violently before crashing into the canyon floor below. Silence settled across the battlefield. Smoke drifted upward. Burning wreckage littered the desert. Surviving mercenaries fled toward the horizon. Victor Von Doom stood alone among the ruins. His sensors confirmed complete victory. More importantly, local communications had exploded with reports of the encounter. Thousands had witnessed the battle through recordings. Criminal networks were already discussing him. Fear spread faster than any weapon. Doom understood fear. Fear created leverage. Leverage created power. Power created order. For the first time since arriving in this strange galaxy, Victor Von Doom allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had no resources, no army, no allies, no knowledge of galactic politics. Yet already he had established something valuable, a reputation. Meanwhile, light years away on Coruscant, fragments of unusual intelligence reports began arriving within Republic databases. Most analysts ignored them. The Clone Wars produced countless strange rumors. Yet one report eventually reached a Jedi intelligence officer. An armored warrior. Unknown technology. Impossible combat capabilities. Criminal syndicates destroyed. Witness accounts conflicting with known Republic records. The officer forwarded the report for further review. Elsewhere, similar reports reached Separatist channels. Count Dooku briefly glanced at the information before setting it aside. For now. On another world entirely, hidden beneath layers of deception and political theater, Chancellor Palpatine received the same intelligence. Unlike everyone else, he did not dismiss it. The Dark Lord of the Sith studied every detail, every witness statement, every sensor anomaly, every battlefield report. Something about the unknown stranger troubled him. Palpatine could not explain why. But the Force whispered caution. And the Force rarely whispered without reason. Back on Veshkar, night settled across the desert. Twin moons illuminated endless dunes. Cold winds swept through rocky canyons. Victor Von Doom stood alone atop a cliff overlooking distant city lights. He had spent the day studying intercepted transmissions, learning names, governments, factions. It was the Republic, the Separatists, the Jedi, the Sith. Each discovery revealed new opportunities. Each revelation exposed deeper weaknesses. The galaxy was fractured, divided, afraid. And Victor Von Doom had spent his entire life mastering broken worlds. Far beyond the horizon, the lights of civilization glittered against the darkness. To ordinary men, they represented possibility. To conquerors, they represented territory. To visionaries, they represented responsibility. Victor Von Doom saw all three. His armored mask reflected the pale moonlight as he stared across the endless desert. Somewhere among those countless stars, civilizations fought for survival. Governments struggled to maintain control. Armies bled for causes they barely understood. And hidden behind the machinery of war, forces moved that even Doom had not yet discovered. The galaxy believed it was preparing for the Clone Wars. It had no idea it was preparing for Dr. Doom. The destruction of Garvek's mercenary army should have been the end of the story on Veshkar. Throughout the Outer Rim, warlords rose and fell every day. Criminal empires expanded and collapsed with such regularity that most beings barely paid attention. Entire organizations disappeared overnight only to be replaced by new predators eager to claim the scraps. Under normal circumstances, Victor Von Doom's victory would have become little more than another tale whispered in cantinas and smuggler ports. Yet there was nothing normal about Victor Von Doom. While the surviving members of the Black Fang Syndicate fled into neighboring territories carrying stories of an unstoppable armored conqueror, Doom himself had already moved beyond the battle. He had not crossed dimensions merely to dominate a desert world controlled by criminals. His ambitions were far greater, and the information he had gathered during the previous days painted a picture of a galaxy suffering from a disease he recognized immediately. The disease was not war. War was merely a symptom. The disease was leadership. From a hidden command center established within an abandoned mining complex deep beneath Veshkar's northern mountains, Doom continued analyzing every transmission his systems could intercept. His armor absorbed enormous quantities of data every hour. Republic broadcasts, commercial shipping records, Senate proceedings, Separatist declarations, trade manifests, military reports, criminal intelligence networks. The deeper he looked, the more disappointed he became. Entire star systems lived under governments incapable of protecting them. Bureaucracies consumed themselves in endless arguments while pirates ravaged shipping lanes. Senators debated procedure while civilians died. Corporate interests manipulated entire sectors. Criminal syndicates operated openly despite the existence of supposedly powerful governments. Everywhere Doom looked, he saw weakness disguised as civilization. The Galactic Republic fascinated him most. On paper, it possessed everything necessary to become the greatest political structure in galactic history. Thousands of worlds united beneath a single government. Vast economic resources. Advanced technology. Massive populations. Ancient institutions. Yet despite possessing every possible advantage, it staggered from crisis to crisis like a wounded giant unable to recognize the source of its injuries. Doom studied Senate recordings late into the night, observing representatives arguing over trade disputes while entire systems suffered attacks. He watched committees form committees whose sole purpose seemed to be creating additional committees. Endless procedures delayed every meaningful decision. Political factions fought each other more fiercely than they fought actual threats. Corruption flowed through the government so openly that few even attempted to hide it. Victor von Doom had ruled Latveria. He understood governance. He understood responsibility. Most importantly, he understood that power existed for a purpose. Power was not something to be debated endlessly while people suffered. Power existed to create order. The Republic seemed incapable of understanding that basic truth. The Confederacy of Independent Systems proved little better. At first glance, their criticisms of the Republic appeared legitimate. Many worlds genuinely suffered under Republic inefficiency. Many systems possessed reasonable grievances. Yet the deeper Doom examined Separatist leadership, the more he recognized familiar patterns. Powerful corporations hiding behind idealistic rhetoric. Wealthy interests manipulating public anger. Ambitious leaders exploiting legitimate frustrations to pursue private agendas. Countless citizens genuinely believed they were fighting for freedom while others behind the scenes accumulated influence and profit. Neither side impressed him. Neither side appeared capable of delivering lasting stability. Neither side possessed leadership worthy of the civilization they claimed to represent. As days became weeks, Doom began expanding his operations across the Outer Rim. Rather than immediately seeking confrontation with major galactic powers, he focused on observation. His armor's advanced systems allowed him to infiltrate communication networks throughout nearby sectors. He studied local governments, examined military structures, evaluated economic conditions. Everywhere he looked, he found evidence supporting the same conclusion. Entire regions existed in states of permanent instability because those with authority lacked either the courage or competence necessary to enforce lasting order. One frontier world caught his attention more than most. The agricultural planet of Morava sat directly between several disputed trade routes. Officially protected by Republic forces, it had nevertheless suffered years of pirate attacks. Local leaders repeatedly petitioned Coruscant for assistance. Requests disappeared within bureaucratic channels. Additional aid never arrived. The planet survived only because local militias fought desperately to defend their settlements. To Doom, the situation represented a perfect case study. A government claiming authority over a world while failing to fulfill its most basic obligation: protection. He traveled there personally. The journey marked his first extended interaction with ordinary citizens of the Star Wars galaxy. Disguising neither his armor nor his identity, Doom arrived openly. Predictably, his appearance generated fear. Yet fear soon gave way to curiosity as local inhabitants realized the armored stranger behaved differently from pirates, mercenaries, or criminals. He asked questions, observed infrastructure, studied local conditions. He listened more than he spoke. What he discovered only reinforced his growing beliefs. Entire farming communities lived under constant threat. Families lost relatives during raids. Trade disruptions damaged local economies. Young people abandoned settlements because they no longer believed the future offered opportunities. Every problem traced back to the same source: Weak leadership. Delayed decisions. Institutions more concerned with preserving procedure than achieving results. When another pirate attack occurred several days after his arrival, Doom witnessed the consequences firsthand. The raiders struck shortly before sunset. Warning sirens echoed across the settlement. Militia forces rushed toward defensive positions. Panic spread through crowded streets. The attack unfolded exactly as countless previous attacks had unfolded. Except this time Victor Von Doom was present. The pirates never stood a chance. Their speeders exploded before reaching the city perimeter. Energy blasts from Doom's armor shredded vehicles and weapon emplacements with terrifying precision. Defensive shields absorbed incoming fire effortlessly. When several raiders attempted flanking maneuvers, Doom anticipated their movements and intercepted them personally. The battle ended so quickly that many citizens barely understood what had happened. For the first time in years, the settlement survived an attack without suffering casualties. The reaction fascinated Doom. Instead of celebrating victory alone, many inhabitants expressed something else. Relief. Not because the pirates were defeated. Because someone had finally acted decisively. Someone had solved a problem rather than discussing it. Someone had protected them. The distinction mattered. Over the following weeks, stories spread throughout neighboring systems. The mysterious armored ruler who appeared wherever governments failed. The stranger who defeated pirates, criminals, and warlords without demanding allegiance. Entire communities began discussing Victor Von Doom as though he were some ancient legend returned from myth. Some feared him. Others admired him. Many simply wanted to understand who he was. Far away on Coruscant, those same stories increasingly attracted official attention. Within the Jedi Temple, several members of the Order reviewed intelligence reports describing the armored outsider's activities. Most Jedi considered him unusual but not immediately dangerous. Outer Rim vigilantes appeared frequently enough. Yet certain details troubled experienced observers. Doom never acted impulsively. Never sought personal wealth. Never appeared motivated by revenge. Every action demonstrated planning. Every intervention strengthened his influence. Every victory expanded his reputation. Master Obi-Wan Kenobi found himself particularly interested. There was something strangely familiar about the reports. Not the armor. Not the technology. The mindset. The certainty. The belief that one individual could solve problems institutions could not. History contained many examples of such figures. Some became heroes. Others became tyrants. The difficulty lay in distinguishing between the two before it was too late. Meanwhile, Count Dooku reached similar conclusions from the opposite perspective. The former Jedi examined intelligence gathered by Separatist agents and immediately recognized potential danger. Victor Von Doom possessed characteristics rarely found together in a single individual. Extraordinary intelligence, military effectiveness, political instincts, charismatic influence. Such combinations often reshaped history. Dooku wondered whether the stranger could become an ally. Palpatine wondered whether he might become something worse. The Dark Lord spent increasing amounts of time studying reports from affected sectors. Every new piece of information deepened his concern. The Force remained strangely quiet regarding Doom. That alone was alarming. Palpatine excelled at manipulating people because he understood their desires. He understood greed, fear, ambition, pride. Doom displayed elements of all those traits, yet something about him remained fundamentally different. Victor Von Doom genuinely believed he knew how to save civilizations. That conviction made him dangerous. Not because it was unique, because history occasionally proved such men correct. Months after arriving in the galaxy, Doom stood upon a balcony overlooking Morava's largest settlement. Beneath him, citizens moved through brightly illuminated streets. Markets remained open long after sunset. Children played openly in public squares. Trade traffic had increased. Criminal activity had declined. Stability had returned. Not because governments intervened. Not because bureaucracies solved their problems. Not because politicians debated solutions. Because one man acted. The realization did not inflate Doom's ego. He had always known what he was capable of accomplishing. Instead, it strengthened a conclusion forming steadily within his mind. This galaxy suffered from the same weakness he had witnessed countless times before. Power existed. Resources existed. Good intentions existed. Yet none of it mattered because leadership failed. The Republic called itself civilization's guardian. The Separatists called themselves champions of freedom. Both claimed noble goals. Neither delivered lasting results. As twin moons rose above the distant mountains, Victor Von Doom looked toward the stars and considered the vast political machines stretching across thousands of systems. He had entered this galaxy as a stranger cast from another reality. Yet with every passing day, he understood it more clearly. He understood its flaws, its strengths, its fears. Most importantly, he understood its future. The galaxy did not need another politician. It did not need another committee. It did not need another faction. It needed leadership capable of imposing order upon chaos. And Victor Von Doom had never doubted that he was the most qualified man in any universe to provide exactly that. The Republic first learned Victor Von Doom was more than an unusually capable Outer Rim vigilante on a rain-soaked world called Kelvaris. Located along a disputed hyperspace corridor near the border between Republic and Separatist influence, the planet had become another victim of the widening instability consuming the galaxy. Pirates raided shipping lanes with increasing boldness, local governments struggled to maintain authority, and both major political blocs remained too distracted by larger concerns to devote meaningful resources to the system's protection. It was precisely the kind of place Doom had spent months studying. A world abandoned by institutions that claimed responsibility for it. A world where ordinary people paid the price for the failures of distant leaders. By the time reports reached Coruscant that an armored stranger had dismantled 3 criminal organizations and restored stability to several major settlements within a matter of weeks, the Jedi Order could no longer ignore him. The assignment eventually fell to Jedi Master Plo Koon and his former Padawan, now Jedi Knight Ahsoka Tano, who had recently returned from an independent diplomatic mission. Officially, their purpose was observation. The Republic's Senate wanted answers. The Jedi Council wanted clarification. Nobody yet considered Victor Von Doom an enemy, but neither were they comfortable allowing an increasingly influential unknown figure to establish power throughout the Outer Rim without scrutiny. The Jedi arrived expecting another charismatic warlord, perhaps a gifted mercenary or local revolutionary whose growing reputation exceeded his actual accomplishments. Instead, they found something far more complicated. The encounter occurred during a violent storm that rolled across Kelvaris' northern continent. Thick clouds churned overhead, illuminated by distant flashes of blue lightning. Heavy rain battered the rocky landscape as Republic authorities attempted to negotiate the surrender of a heavily fortified pirate enclave that had terrorized nearby settlements for years. Intelligence suggested hundreds of armed criminals occupied the fortress. Previous military operations had failed repeatedly. The pirates possessed stolen Republic weaponry, defensive shields, and extensive tunnel networks beneath the mountains. Local commanders expected another prolonged campaign. Then Victor Von Doom arrived. His armored figure emerged from the storm itself, advancing through sheets of rain without hesitation. Lightning flashed behind him, transforming his silhouette into something almost mythological. Republic soldiers watched in stunned silence as the lone stranger approached the fortress gates while blaster fire erupted from defensive emplacements above. Energy bolts struck his armor and vanished harmlessly. Heavy weapons opened fire. Missile launchers unleashed entire salvos. The bombardment would have obliterated an armored vehicle. Doom never slowed. The fortress defenses began failing moments later. Massive energy surges erupted across shield generators. Automated turrets exploded. Defensive systems overloaded simultaneously. Entire sections of fortified walls collapsed inward as though crushed by invisible forces. Through it all, Doom advanced relentlessly, his armor glowing with crackling energy as he dismantled an installation that Republic forces had failed to conquer for years. Plo Koon observed everything through macro binoculars and felt genuine surprise. The Force revealed powerful individuals in many forms, Yet this man remained unlike anyone he had encountered before. There was discipline in every movement, precision in every action. Nothing about the assault resembled recklessness or arrogance. Victor Von Doom attacked with the calm efficiency of someone solving a mathematical equation. Within an hour, the fortress had fallen. Hundreds surrendered. The remaining defenders fled. A campaign expected to cost hundreds of lives ended with remarkably little bloodshed. Naturally, the Jedi sought a meeting. Their first conversation took place inside the fortress command center while Rain continued hammering the structure's durasteel exterior. Republic officers stood nearby. Security personnel watched nervously. Nobody knew exactly what to expect. Doom remained standing throughout the exchange, his metal cloak hanging motionless despite the draft-filled corridors. Plo Koon approached with characteristic patience while Ahsoka studied the armored stranger carefully. Years of Jedi training had taught her to trust her instincts. Her instincts could not decide what Victor Von Doom represented. There was confidence radiating from him, but not the desperate need for validation she had witnessed in tyrants. There was authority, but not the cruelty common among criminals. There was pride, certainly, perhaps more pride than she had ever encountered in a single individual, yet it existed alongside genuine competence. Most confusing of all was the fact that local citizens genuinely seemed grateful for his presence. The conversation began politely enough. It did not remain polite. As the Jedi explained their mission and questioned his activities, Doom quickly revealed the fundamental difference separating his worldview from theirs. He had spent months examining the Republic. He had studied the Jedi Order extensively. He understood their history, philosophy, and role within galactic society. The more he learned, the less impressed he became. In Doom's eyes, the Jedi represented everything wrong with the Republic's approach to governance. Extraordinary individuals possessing immense power who deliberately restricted themselves through endless rules, endless debates, and endless caution. Plo Koon attempted to explain the importance of restraint. Doom dismissed the argument immediately. Restraint possessed value only when it served a purpose. The Jedi, he argued, had elevated restraint into an ideology. An excuse for inaction. An excuse for indecision. An excuse for allowing preventable suffering to continue while they debated morality. The discussion grew increasingly intense. Republic officers exchanged nervous glances. Ahsoka found herself becoming strangely defensive despite not entirely disagreeing with some of his criticisms. Victor Von Doom spoke with the certainty of a man who had spent his entire life carrying responsibility. He described governments collapsing because leaders feared making difficult choices. He described populations abandoned while officials argued over procedure. Described civilizations weakened by rulers more concerned with appearing virtuous than producing results. Every example felt uncomfortably relevant, because many of them described realities the Jedi themselves confronted daily. The exchange might have ended there if not for what happened next. The Force warned Plo Koon moments before the attack began. A hidden Separatist cell, fearing the collapse of their local influence network, launched a desperate strike against the fortress. Explosions rocked the structure. Blaster fire echoed through corridors. Assassination teams emerged from concealed positions. Chaos erupted almost instantly. The Jedi reacted immediately. So did Doom. For several extraordinary minutes, Republic personnel witnessed something few would ever forget. Jedi and Victor Von Doom fighting side by side. Ahsoka's lightsabers flashed through smoke-filled hallways. Plo Koon deflected incoming fire with elegant precision. Nearby, Doom advanced like an unstoppable engine of destruction. Force abilities and advanced technology combined against a common threat. Yet even amid the battle, differences remained obvious. The Jedi neutralized opponents whenever possible. Doom eliminated threats permanently. The contrast disturbed Ahsoka more than she expected. Not because Doom's methods lacked effectiveness. Because they were undeniably effective. The attack collapsed quickly. The surviving assailants surrendered. The fortress remained secure. Afterward, as emergency crews worked throughout the damaged structure, Plo Koon delivered an invitation. The Jedi Council wished to meet Victor Von Doom personally. To the surprise of many observers, he accepted. Several weeks later, his arrival on Coruscant became one of the most discussed events within political and Jedi circles alike. The capital planet had witnessed countless unusual visitors throughout its history. Alien diplomats, corporate leaders, military heroes, even Sith infiltrators hidden behind respectable facades. Yet Victor Von Doom attracted attention unlike any visitor in recent memory. Part of it stemmed from appearance. His armor alone commanded notice. Part of it came from reputation. Stories of his accomplishments had spread throughout the Outer Rim. Most importantly, however, people sensed significance surrounding him. The feeling that history might be changing. The Jedi Temple stood gleaming against Coruscant's endless skyline when Doom arrived. Towering spires pierced the clouds. Air traffic flowed endlessly between distant skyscrapers. Beneath the sunlight, the ancient headquarters of the Order appeared almost timeless. For many visitors, the temple inspired awe. Victor Von Doom merely studied it, evaluated it, judged it. The council meeting began under controlled conditions. Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Shaak Ti, and several other senior Jedi attended. They expected disagreement. They expected challenges. They did not expect Victor Von Doom to dismantle centuries of Jedi assumptions with the same relentless precision he applied to every other problem. The debate lasted hours. Doom argued that the Republic remained trapped in perpetual crisis because institutions feared decisive action. He argued that peace required strength, not aggression, not tyranny. Strength, the ability to act, the willingness to make difficult decisions before situations deteriorated into catastrophes. The Jedi responded with their traditional philosophy. Power required restraint. Authority demanded humility. History repeatedly demonstrated the dangers of concentrating too much control in too few hands. Normally such arguments proved persuasive. Not against Victor Von Doom. He countered each point with examples drawn from both this galaxy and his own experiences. Worlds destroyed because leaders hesitated. Conflicts prolonged because governments refused to act decisively. Innocent lives sacrificed to preserve political appearances. Obi-Wan listened carefully throughout the exchange. More than once he found himself disturbed by how difficult it was to dismiss Doom's reasoning. The Jedi possessed answers. They always possessed answers. Yet Doom forced them to confront questions they preferred avoiding. Questions about effectiveness. Questions about responsibility. Questions about whether noble intentions mattered if they consistently failed to prevent suffering. When the meeting finally concluded, no agreement existed. No alliance formed. No friendship developed. Yet something significant had changed. Victor Von Doom departed the temple unconvinced by Jedi philosophy. The Jedi remained unconvinced by Victor Von Doom's vision. Nevertheless, both sides now understood each other far better. And that understanding created new complications. As night settled across Coruscant, countless lights illuminated the endless cityscape beneath the stars. Within the Jedi Temple, several council members continued discussing the visitor long after he departed. Across the Senate district, politicians debated his growing influence. Deep within hidden chambers, Darth Sidious reviewed intelligence reports with increasing concern. Because unlike everyone else, the Sith Lord recognized the true danger. Victor Von Doom was not merely another powerful outsider. He was something far worse. A man capable of convincing others that the galaxy's problems had solutions. And a man who genuinely believed he possessed them. Victor Von Doom had spent his entire life surrounded by liars. Kings lied to their people. Politicians lied to their voters. Revolutionaries lied to their followers. Even heroes often lied to themselves. In his experience, civilizations rarely collapsed because of external enemies. More often, they rotted from within while powerful individuals manipulated events from behind carefully crafted masks. It was a lesson he had learned repeatedly across countless crises, and it was one of the reasons he remained deeply suspicious of the Republic despite its noble image. The more time he spent on Coruscant, the more familiar the patterns became. At first the inconsistencies seemed minor. Small contradictions buried within Senate proceedings. Financial transfers that made little strategic sense. Military decisions that benefited neither the Republic nor its citizens. Viewed independently, each anomaly appeared insignificant. Together, they formed a picture that disturbed him. Someone was guiding events. Not controlling every detail. Not dictating every outcome. Guiding. Steering. Encouraging instability. The realization arrived gradually as Doom established himself within Coruscant's political ecosystem. Unlike the Jedi, who approached the Republic primarily through the lens of philosophy and service, Doom examined it as a ruler. He understood power structures. He understood bureaucracy. Most importantly, he understood how ambitious individuals concealed their influence behind layers of procedure and plausible deniability. Coruscant fascinated him. The planet represented one of the greatest achievements of civilization he had ever encountered. Trillions of citizens lived upon a single world transformed into an endless city. Towering skyscrapers vanished into cloud layers. Massive transit systems connected districts larger than entire nations. Commerce flowed continuously through every level of society. It was magnificent. It was also vulnerable. Because beneath the surface beauty, Doom sensed decay. Every day he observed senators arguing while worlds burned on distant frontiers. He watched committees spend weeks debating issues requiring immediate action. He witnessed political factions prioritizing personal interests over collective survival. The Republic possessed tremendous resources and extraordinary potential, yet it constantly sabotaged itself through indecision. The situation reminded him of countless governments he had studied before. Governments destined to fail. Unless someone intervened. Naturally, such thoughts attracted attention. Within weeks of his arrival, Doom had become a controversial figure throughout the capital. Some senators admired his intelligence and decisiveness. Others viewed him as a dangerous authoritarian. Journalists followed his movements. Political commentators debated his speeches. Military officers quietly studied his recommendations. The Jedi watched from a distance, uncertain whether he represented a threat or an opportunity. Among those paying close attention was Chancellor Palpatine. The Supreme Chancellor had cultivated a reputation for wisdom, patience, and moderation. To the public, he appeared exactly what the Republic needed during difficult times. Reasonable. Trustworthy. Victor Von Doom disliked him immediately. Not because Palpatine behaved suspiciously. The opposite. He behaved perfectly. Too perfectly. Every public statement seemed calculated. Every gesture felt measured. Every political victory appeared effortless. The Chancellor projected an image of humble leadership so flawless that Doom found it unsettling. Nobody possessed such control over perception without significant effort. Nobody. Their first private meeting only deepened his concerns. Palpatine welcomed Doom warmly into his office overlooking the sprawling cityscape. The setting sun cast golden light across polished floors and expansive windows. Airspeeders moved between distant towers like streams of glowing insects. The view represented the power of the Republic itself. The conversation remained cordial. On the surface, Palpatine spoke about democracy, cooperation, and the importance of unity during wartime. Doom responded with observations regarding leadership, stability, and the dangers of institutional paralysis. Both men smiled. Both men remained polite. Neither trusted the other. Throughout the discussion, Doom experienced something unusual. Difficulty reading the Chancellor. Not emotionally. Strategically. Normally he excelled at understanding motivations. Years of political maneuvering had sharpened his instincts to remarkable levels. He could identify ambitions, fears, weaknesses, and hidden agendas with extraordinary accuracy. Palpatine revealed nothing. Every answer felt correct. Every reaction seemed appropriate. Every opinion aligned perfectly with circumstances. The performance was flawless, which made it suspicious. After the meeting concluded, Doom left with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, elsewhere within Coruscant's endless depths, another investigation was quietly unfolding. Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi had begun reviewing intelligence reports connected to several recent Separatist operations. What initially appeared to be routine military analysis slowly transformed into something more troubling. Again and again he encountered strange coincidences. Strategic decisions that benefited both sides simultaneously. Opportunities that prolonged conflict without creating meaningful advantages. The pattern felt wrong. Yet every time he attempted to pursue the matter further, evidence disappeared or led nowhere. The war itself seemed designed to resist scrutiny. Obi-Wan eventually found himself thinking about Victor Von Doom more often than he expected. The man challenged nearly every Jedi principle. Yet he possessed a remarkable ability to identify problems others overlooked. Perhaps because he approached situations without assumptions. Perhaps because he lacked the institutional blind spots affecting the Republic and the Order alike. Whatever the reason, Obi-Wan reluctantly admitted that Doom's suspicions deserved consideration. As weeks passed, Victor Von Doom expanded his investigation. Information became his weapon. He studied military deployments, trade agreements, corporate contracts, Senate voting records, banking transactions, intelligence briefings. The sheer volume of data would have overwhelmed ordinary analysts. Doom was not ordinary. His armor's advanced computational systems processed information continuously. Hidden. Algorithms identified patterns invisible to conventional observers. Combined with his own intellect, the results proved formidable. Gradually, a shadow began taking shape. Not a person. A presence. A recurring influence connecting otherwise unrelated events. Certain corporations benefited from prolonged warfare regardless of victories or defeats. Certain senators consistently advanced policies that increased instability while claiming to preserve security. Certain intelligence failures occurred too frequently to be accidental. Someone was orchestrating conditions. Not openly, not obviously, but undeniably. The realization intensified when Doom began examining the origins of the clone army. The official narrative contained too many inconsistencies. A Jedi Master vanished. A secret army appeared. Political circumstances aligned perfectly. An enormous military force emerged exactly when the Republic needed it most. The sequence of events strained credibility. To Victor Von Doom, it resembled planning. Extremely sophisticated planning. The deeper he investigated, the more resistance he encountered. Records became inaccessible. Witnesses disappeared. Potential leads reached dead ends. On 3 separate occasions, assassination attempts targeted individuals connected to his inquiries. The attacks failed. Victor Von Doom was notoriously difficult to kill. Still, their existence confirmed his suspicions. Someone powerful wanted these questions buried. Far below Coruscant's upper levels, within forgotten industrial districts abandoned by most citizens, Doom eventually discovered his first genuine breakthrough. An intelligence broker with connections to multiple criminal syndicates possessed fragments of information regarding unusual financial networks operating throughout the Republic. The meeting took place inside a decaying warehouse illuminated by flickering industrial lights. Rust-stained ancient support structures. Machinery groaned somewhere in the darkness. The air carried the scent of oil, ozone, and neglect. The broker arrived terrified. Not of Doom. Of whoever stood behind the conspiracy. He described hidden transactions routed through dozens of intermediaries. Corporate shell organizations. Secret accounts. Resource movements benefiting entities on both sides of the war. None of it constituted definitive proof. Together, however, the details painted a disturbing picture. The clone wars were being fed, nourished, sustained. Someone needed the conflict to continue. The conversation ended abruptly when assassins attacked. Blaster fire erupted from elevated walkways. Explosions shook the structure. Professional killers emerged from concealed positions with military precision. They never stood a chance. Victor Von Doom unleashed the full capabilities of his armor. Energy blasts shattered cover. Force fields deflected incoming fire. Electromagnetic pulses disabled advanced weaponry. Within minutes, the attackers lay defeated. Yet the intelligence broker died during the assault. His final words haunted Doom long afterward. The Senate. Not a name. Not an accusation. Merely a direction. A warning. Shadows beneath the Senate. The phrase lingered in his thoughts. Above, in the gleaming towers where politicians debated the future of civilization, something rotten hid beneath layers of legitimacy. The challenge lay in identifying it before it was too late. Elsewhere, Darth Sidious watched events unfold with increasing concern. For years, his grand design had progressed flawlessly. The Republic moved toward collapse. The Jedi drifted toward destruction. Every major development served his objectives. Victor Von Doom represented a variable he had not anticipated. Worse, Doom possessed exactly the skills necessary to become dangerous. Military strength alone never threatened Sidious. Political awareness did. The Sith Lord had spent decades manipulating institutions because institutions determined the fate of galaxies. Victor Von Doom understood that truth instinctively. Unlike the Jedi, he did not view politics as an unfortunate necessity. He viewed it as a battlefield where hidden enemies could be exposed. For the first time in many years, Sidious began adjusting plans. Additional precautions. Additional safeguards. Additional contingencies. Because Victor Von Doom was approaching truths he should never discover. Meanwhile, Doom himself remained unaware of how close he had come to the center of the web. Standing within his Coruscant residence late one evening, he gazed across the endless city while storms rolled across distant sectors of the horizon. Lightning flashed between skyscrapers. Rain transformed the city lights into shimmering rivers of color. Somewhere within that vast urban labyrinth, a hidden architect guided the greatest war in galactic history. Someone manipulated governments, armies, corporations, and ideologies with extraordinary precision. Someone believed themselves untouchable. Victor Von Doom had encountered such individuals before. They always made the same mistake. Eventually, they began believing their own myth. And when that happened, they stopped seeing threats until those threats stood directly before them. A faint smile crossed Doom's concealed face beneath the metal mask. The game had changed. What began as curiosity had become a hunt. And Victor Von Doom was exceptionally good at hunting powerful men who believed they controlled the world. Far above the city, hidden within the highest levels of political power, Darth Sidious gazed out across Coruscant from his private chambers and felt a rare sensation stirring beneath decades of confidence. Not fear. Not yet. But concern. Because the armored stranger from another reality was no longer studying the Republic. He was studying the puppet master. And sooner or later, one of them would find the other first. Victor Von Doom had no intention of becoming a Jedi. He had no intention of serving the Republic. He had even less interest in supporting the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The longer he remained within the Star Wars galaxy, the more obvious it became that both sides of the Clone Wars suffered from the same fundamental disease. One hid its flaws behind the language of democracy and noble ideals. The other disguised ambition and corporate greed beneath promises of freedom and self-determination. Both claimed to represent the future. Both demanded loyalty. Both expected civilizations to sacrifice themselves for causes they barely understood. To Doom, the conflict increasingly resembled a contest between competing failures. The Republic possessed immense resources, vast territories, and centuries of legitimacy, yet it moved with the sluggishness of a dying giant. Decisions took months. Crises multiplied faster than solutions. Entire sectors begged for assistance while politicians argued over procedure and jurisdiction. The Separatists, meanwhile, preached independence while remaining dependent upon corporations whose only true allegiance was profit. Worlds joined the Confederacy seeking liberation and frequently discovered they had merely exchanged one set of masters for another. Neither deserved the unquestioning loyalty of the galaxy. Neither deserved Victor Von Doom. From the towering windows of his Coruscant residence, he watched the city-planet glow beneath the darkness of night. Endless rivers of lights stretched toward distant horizons. Airspeeders flowed between skyscrapers like streams of illuminated blood moving through the arteries of some vast metallic organism. Trillions of lives existed beneath those lights. Trillions of beings placed their faith in institutions that could barely protect themselves. The thought disgusted him. A civilization should not survive through luck. It should endure through strength. His investigations into the hidden architect behind the Clone Wars continued, but Doom understood that knowledge alone would never be enough. If he intended to confront whoever manipulated the Republic from the shadows, he would require something more valuable than information. He would require influence. Power. Not borrowed power granted by political office or military rank. His own power. The realization marked a turning point. Instead of focusing exclusively upon Coruscant, Doom began traveling once again. The galaxy was vast. The Republic and Separatists dominated headlines and holonet broadcasts, but beyond their borders existed countless worlds abandoned by both governments. Systems neglected for decades. Frontier settlements surviving through stubborn determination. Independent communities forced to defend themselves because nobody else would. Those worlds interested him far more than Senate chambers. His first destination was the mid-rim world of Valtoris, a mining planet strategically located near several unstable hyperspace routes. Officially, the Republic claimed jurisdiction over the system. In reality, Republic influence extended little further than a few administrative offices and occasional customs inspections. Pirates raided shipping convoys regularly. Criminal syndicates controlled local commerce. Settlers survived because they had learned not to expect help. When Doom arrived, the situation deteriorated further. A notorious pirate coalition had established blockades around several mining regions. Food shortages threatened thousands. Local authorities lacked the resources necessary to respond. Republic officials promised assistance that never seemed to arrive. Within 3 weeks, the crisis ended. Not because negotiations succeeded. Not because reinforcements appeared. Because Victor Von Doom personally dismantled the pirate network. The operation became legendary throughout neighboring sectors. Pirate vessels vanished from hyperspace routes. Hidden supply depots were seized. Criminal leaders disappeared overnight. Entire organizations collapsed with astonishing speed. More remarkable than the victory itself was what followed. Doom did not occupy territory. He did not install loyal governors. He did not demand tribute. Instead, he established defensive infrastructure, trained local security forces, and departed. The message spread quickly. There was a new player operating beyond the influence of both major factions. A ruler without a kingdom. A conqueror who seemed uninterested in conquest. Naturally, people became curious. Among those paying close attention were the smugglers. For generations, smugglers had survived in the spaces between governments. They knew which worlds mattered and which worlds politicians ignored. They understood the realities of frontier life better than senators ever could. Many initially viewed Doom with suspicion. Others expected him to become another authoritarian seeking control over trade routes. The truth proved more complicated. One of the most influential smuggling captains in the Outer Rim, a Twi'lek woman named Niravos, arranged a meeting after hearing countless reports regarding the armored outsider. The encounter occurred aboard a massive cargo station orbiting an unremarkable moon beyond Republic patrol zones. The station functioned as neutral territory where merchants, smugglers, bounty hunters, and independent operators conducted business away from official scrutiny. The atmosphere suited Doom perfectly. There were no senators present, no bureaucrats, no political theater, only practical individuals concerned with survival. Nira expected arrogance. Instead, she encountered competence. Victor Von Doom treated smugglers neither as criminals nor heroes. He viewed them as assets, individuals possessing skills, resources, and information ignored by larger institutions. During hours of negotiation, he outlined a vision unlike anything she expected. He did not seek domination. He sought stability. Independent worlds required supply networks. Frontier settlements needed protection. Trade routes demanded security. Smugglers already possessed the infrastructure necessary to accomplish those goals. The arrangement benefited everyone. Communities received assistance. Merchants received profits. Criminal predation diminished. Most importantly, nobody answered to Coruscant or the Separatist Council. Nera eventually agreed. Others followed. Gradually, an informal network began emerging. Not an empire. Not yet. Something smaller. Something more flexible. Something growing. Months passed. The Clone Wars intensified. Major battles dominated headlines while Victor Von Doom continued building relationships throughout regions both major factions largely ignored. Agricultural worlds suffering from supply shortages received assistance. Independent colonies gained access to improved defenses. Trade networks expanded beneath the notice of distracted governments. The movement lacked a formal name. Most participants preferred it that way. Names attracted attention. Results attracted loyalty. Among the groups most intrigued by Doom's activities were the Mandalorians. The warrior culture remained divided following years of political upheaval. Some supported Duchess Satine's vision of peaceful neutrality. Others believed Mandalore had abandoned its traditions. Mercenary clans operated throughout the galaxy, earning reputations as some of the most dangerous fighters alive. Victor Von Doom fascinated them. Not because of his technology. Not because of his victories. Because he carried himself like a ruler. Mandalorians recognized leadership instinctively. A meeting was eventually arranged on Concordia, one of the moons associated with Mandalorian space. Representatives from several warrior clans gathered to evaluate the outsider personally. Expectations varied. Some anticipated a politician. Others expected a warlord. What they found was something stranger. The discussions lasted days. Mandalorians respected strength. Doom possessed strength. They respected competence. Doom possessed competence. They respected individuals willing to assume responsibility for difficult decisions. Again, Doom qualified. Yet, tensions remained. Mandalorians valued freedom. Victor Von Doom valued order. The philosophical divide created friction throughout negotiations. Nevertheless, mutual respect emerged. Several clan leaders concluded that while they would never willingly serve Victor Von Doom, they would gladly fight beside him if circumstances demanded it. For Doom, that was enough. Alliances built upon respect proved more durable than those built upon obligation. Elsewhere, reactions grew increasingly complicated. Within the Republic Senate, concerns multiplied. Reports indicated dozens of frontier systems now relied upon networks connected directly or indirectly to Doom's influence. Trade flowed through channels outside government oversight. Local defense forces received training and equipment independent of Republic command structures. Officially, no laws had been broken. Unofficially, many senators felt threatened. The situation resembled the emergence of a parallel power structure. One not controlled by Coruscant. One not dependent upon political approval. The Jedi observed developments with equal uncertainty. Obi-Wan Kenobi followed the reports carefully. Part of him admired what Doom accomplished. The results were undeniable. Communities became safer. Trade improved. Criminal organizations suffered defeats. Ordinary citizens benefited. Yet another part of him remained concerned. History contained countless examples of charismatic leaders accumulating influence through noble intentions before eventually demanding greater authority. Victor Von Doom insisted he sought stability. Obi-Wan believed he meant it. The question was how far Doom might go in pursuit of that goal. Meanwhile, Darth Sidious found the situation increasingly intolerable. The armored outsider continued complicating carefully orchestrated plans. Every world stabilized by Doom represented fewer opportunities for manipulation. Every independent alliance weakened existing political pressures. Every success increased his reputation. Worst of all, people trusted him. Not universally. Not blindly. But enough. Trust was dangerous. Trust created alternatives. The Sith Lord understood something many others overlooked. Victor Von Doom's growing network was not merely an organization. It was an idea. An idea that worlds abandoned by the Republic and ignored by the Separatists did not need either government to survive. Ideas could spread faster than armies. Ideas could undermine decades of planning. Ideas could reshape history. On a remote frontier world called Carvos, Doom stood atop a ridge overlooking a settlement recently rebuilt after years of pirate attacks. Below him, workers constructed new infrastructure. Cargo vessels landed within secured spaceports. Children played along streets once controlled by criminals. The evening air carried the scent of machinery, dust, and approaching rain. For the first time since entering this galaxy, Victor Von Doom saw tangible evidence of lasting progress. Not promises. Not speeches. Results. The settlement existed because ordinary people received opportunities instead of excuses. Because someone acted rather than debated. Because leadership required responsibility. Yet even as satisfaction settled over him, his instincts remained alert. Somewhere within the Republic, a hidden mastermind continued guiding events. The Clone Wars still raged. Entire star systems remained trapped between competing powers. And every success Doom achieved increased the likelihood of confrontation. Sooner or later, the architect behind the war would move against him directly. Victor Von Doom welcomed the prospect. Because while senators argued and generals fought, he had quietly built something neither the Republic nor the Separatists fully understood. Not a government. Not an army. Not an empire. A coalition of worlds, warriors, smugglers, merchants, and survivors bound together by a simple belief. That they no longer needed permission from distant powers to determine their own future. And for the first time since his arrival in the Star Wars galaxy, Victor Von Doom possessed something approaching a kingdom. Not one ruled by fear. Not one built through conquest. A kingdom waiting for a king. The most dangerous misconception in the galaxy was the belief that power automatically created loyalty. Politicians believed influence could be purchased. Military leaders believed obedience could be enforced. The Jedi often assumed wisdom naturally inspired cooperation. The Sith, however, elevated the misconception into an art form. They believed every being possessed a weakness. Every mind could be manipulated. Every soul could be corrupted. Given enough time, enough temptation, enough pressure, everyone eventually surrendered. Victor Von Doom had spent his entire life proving otherwise. As his influence expanded throughout the Outer Rim and beyond, the hidden architects of the Clone Wars began paying closer attention. Reports flowed constantly across secure intelligence networks. Independent systems aligned themselves with Doom's growing coalition. Smuggling organizations cooperated with worlds they once exploited. Mandalorian clans maintained cautious but increasingly positive relations with the armored ruler. Frontier settlements viewed him as a protector rather than an occupier. To most observers, these developments appeared politically inconvenient. To Darth Sidious, they represented something far worse. They represented unpredictability. The Sith Lord had spent decades constructing the perfect machine. Every senator, every corporate alliance, every military deployment served a larger purpose. The Clone Wars were not chaos. They were controlled chaos. A carefully engineered conflict designed to transform a democratic republic into a galactic empire. Every battle, every tragedy, every crisis pushed civilization toward a predetermined destination. Victor Von Doom threatened the machine because he operated outside it. He was not Republic. He was not Separatist. He was not Jedi. He was not Sith. He could not be categorized. And individuals who could not be categorized became dangerous. Far above Coruscant, within chambers hidden from both the Senate and the Jedi Order, Darth Sidious reviewed intelligence reports while storm clouds gathered beyond massive transparent steel windows. Lightning illuminated distant sectors of the cityscape. The endless urban horizon seemed alive beneath flashes of electric blue. The Sith Lord rarely experienced frustration. Tonight came close. Every attempt to predict Doom's actions produced conflicting outcomes. Traditional political pressures failed. Economic leverage proved ineffective. Public opinion barely influenced him. Threats held no value. Promises held little more. Victor Von Doom behaved like a sovereign despite possessing no officially recognized throne. More troubling still, people responded positively. That was the true danger. History taught that populations tolerated corruption, inefficiency, and incompetence for surprisingly long periods. What they rarely tolerated was the existence of a visible alternative. Doom had become that alternative. Not openly, not intentionally, but undeniably. The solution seemed obvious. Manipulate him. Everyone possessed weaknesses. Everyone possessed desires. Everyone could be guided. Sidious intended to discover how. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the galaxy, Count Dooku reached similar conclusions through entirely different reasoning. Unlike his master, Dooku had actually developed a degree of respect for Victor Von Doom. The former Jedi understood intellectual isolation. He understood the frustration of witnessing institutional failure while others refused to acknowledge reality. More than once, Dooku found himself agreeing with Doom's criticisms regarding the Republic and the Jedi Order. The similarities disturbed him, because they suggested paths not taken. Had circumstances unfolded differently, Count Dooku and Victor Von Doom might have become allies. Instead, they occupied opposite sides of a hidden war neither fully understood. A meeting became inevitable. The opportunity arrived on Sereno. Officially, the world remained neutral territory. Unofficially, it served as Dooku's personal domain and one of the Confederacy's most important centers of influence. The invitation reached Doom through carefully established channels. It promised discussion rather than negotiation, curiosity rather than diplomacy. Victor Von Doom accepted immediately. He had wanted to meet Count Dooku for some time. The encounter occurred within an ancient palace overlooking mountains drenched in golden sunlight. Vast forests stretched across distant valleys. Wind swept through towering stone structures built centuries before the Republic's modern era. The setting reflected Dooku perfectly. Elegant, powerful, controlled. The conversation lasted nearly an entire day. No guards remained present. No advisors interrupted. Only two of the most formidable minds in the galaxy exchanging ideas. At first, the discussion centered upon politics. The failures of the Republic. The corruption infecting the Senate. The arrogance of institutions incapable of recognizing their own decline. On these subjects, agreement came easily. Dooku spoke with the confidence of a man who had abandoned a broken system. Doom listened carefully. Because unlike most politicians, Dooku genuinely believed what he said. That made him dangerous. As hours passed, however, deeper differences emerged. Dooku viewed conflict as necessary. Doom viewed it as inefficient. Dooku believed civilization required transformation through upheaval. Doom preferred decisive intervention before collapse occurred. Most importantly, Dooku embraced manipulation as a tool. Victor Von Doom despised manipulation when practiced by others. The distinction mattered enormously. Eventually, the conversation shifted toward power itself. Here, Count Dooku made his move. Not openly. Not foolishly. Subtly. He described hidden forces shaping history. Individuals willing to make difficult choices. Leaders capable of imposing order upon chaos. Throughout the discussion, he carefully emphasized freedom from institutional restrictions. Freedom from Jedi dogma. Freedom from political paralysis. The offer remained unspoken, yet unmistakable. Join us. Help reshape the galaxy. Become part of something greater. Victor Von Doom immediately recognized the attempt. His response ended the matter. Doom had no interest in serving causes created by other men. No interest in becoming an instrument within someone else's design. No interest in exchanging one flawed institution for another. The conversation remained polite afterward. But Count Dooku understood. Recruitment was impossible. Victor Von Doom would never willingly kneel. The realization disappointed him more than expected. As Doom departed Sereno, Dooku stood upon a balcony overlooking distant mountains and considered the encounter carefully. For the first time, he began suspecting that Victor Von Doom represented something even more dangerous than the Republic realized. Not because of military strength. Not because of political influence. Because he was immune. immune to the very methods Sith traditionally used to acquire allies. That immunity made him unpredictable. Unpredictability frightened empires. Far away, another attempt unfolded. Unlike Dooku, Darth Sidious preferred operating from shadows. He did not arrange meetings. He created circumstances. Weeks after the Sereno encounter, disturbances began appearing throughout systems connected to Doom's coalition. Pirate attacks increased unexpectedly. Trade routes experienced mysterious disruptions. Local governments encountered sudden political instability. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing obvious. Just enough pressure to create problems. The strategy was simple. Force Doom into difficult decisions. Observe responses. Identify weaknesses. Yet the results proved infuriating. Every crisis strengthened him. Every challenge expanded support. Every obstacle became an opportunity. Worlds that previously remained neutral began cooperating voluntarily. Merchants redirected resources where needed. Smuggling networks adapted rapidly. Mandalorian mercenaries offered assistance. Communities supported one another without waiting for outside intervention. The harder hidden enemies pushed, the stronger the coalition became. Sidious watched with growing irritation. This was not how systems behaved. This was not how people behaved. Unless they genuinely believed in the individual leading them. That possibility troubled him deeply. The Sith understood fear. The Sith understood ambition. The Sith understood hatred. Belief was more complicated. Belief inspired sacrifice. Belief inspired loyalty. Belief inspired resistance. And belief proved remarkably difficult to destroy. Determined to learn more, Sidious finally turned toward a method he rarely employed directly. The Force. Deep within hidden chambers, he extended his awareness outward across hyperspace. Darkness flowed through ancient techniques refined over decades. Consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations. Countless minds flickered across the galaxy like distant stars. Eventually, he found Victor Von Doom. The experience surprised him. Most beings revealed something when examined through the Force. Fear, desire, doubt, regret. Victor Von Doom possessed all those qualities. Yet they existed beneath layers of discipline unlike anything Sidious had encountered before. The man's will resembled armor. Not metaphorical armor. Actual armor. Mental fortifications constructed through decades of hardship, loss, responsibility, and relentless self-belief. Sidious pressed harder. The reaction came instantly. Somewhere across the galaxy, Victor Von Doom stopped what he was doing. He felt it. Not the identity behind the intrusion. Not yet. But the intrusion itself. Slowly, he turned toward a window overlooking distant stars. His eyes narrowed beneath the metal mask. Someone was watching. Someone powerful. Someone accustomed to controlling others. For several seconds, an invisible contest unfolded across impossible distances. Then the connection broke. Both participants withdrew. Neither had gained what they wanted. Both learned something important. Victor Von Doom confirmed the existence of an extraordinarily powerful hidden adversary. Darth Sidious confirmed that Victor Von Doom would not break easily. The realization marked a significant escalation. No longer a political inconvenience. No longer a useful variable. Victor Von Doom had become a threat. Elsewhere, the Jedi sensed none of this directly. Yet even they noticed changes. Obi-Wan observed increasing tension throughout Republic intelligence channels. Mace Windu received reports regarding unusual activity around systems connected to Doom's coalition. Yoda felt disturbances moving beneath events like currents beneath an ocean's surface. Pieces shifted. Invisible forces maneuvered. Something approached. The Clone Wars continued raging across countless battlefronts. Clone troopers fought droid armies beneath burning skies. Star destroyers exchanged fire with Separatist fleets. Entire worlds chose sides in a conflict most barely understood. Yet beyond the visible war, another struggle was emerging. A struggle between architects. One sought control through manipulation. The other sought order through will. One hid within shadows. The other walked openly beneath the stars. As night settled across the galaxy, Victor Von Doom stood alone upon the balcony of a remote fortress world connected to his growing alliance. Cold wind tugged at his cloak. Countless stars glittered above distant mountain ranges. Somewhere out there, hidden behind masks and institutions, an enemy watched him. An enemy who believed every being could be controlled. Victor Von Doom almost welcomed the challenge. Because there was one lesson the Sith had yet to learn. Victor Von Doom had spent his entire life refusing masters. And he had no intention of beginning now. The Clone Wars had begun as a struggle between two visions of government. At least that was what most citizens believed. The Republic spoke of democracy, representation, and unity. The Confederacy spoke of independence, self-determination, and liberation from corruption. Entire worlds chose sides based on those competing promises. Trillions of beings convinced themselves they were participating in a conflict that would decide the future of civilization. Years of war had changed those beliefs. The promises remained. The reality did not. Countless planets watched senators grow wealthy while soldiers died. Countless frontier worlds watched separatist leaders preach freedom while corporations stripped systems of resources. Entire populations endured shortages, piracy, military occupation, and political neglect while distant leaders argued about principles. People had grown tired. Not merely tired of war. Tired of waiting for someone to solve problems. That exhaustion created opportunities. Victor Von Doom understood this better than anyone. He had spent months building something that neither the Republic nor the Separatists fully comprehended. Most assumed he was gathering allies. Others believed he was creating a private military coalition. Some suspected he intended to establish a kingdom. The truth was both simpler and more dangerous. Victor Von Doom was creating results. Where Republic bureaucracies required months to approve aid shipments, Doom delivered assistance within days. Where Senate committees debated security concerns endlessly, his forces eliminated pirate threats swiftly and decisively. Where Separatist governors exploited vulnerable populations, Doom's administrators restored infrastructure and stabilized local economies. The changes seemed impossible. Not because they required extraordinary resources. Because they required competent leadership. That alone made them revolutionary. Across dozens of systems, ordinary citizens experienced something increasingly rare. Improvement. Trade routes became safer. Food supplies became more reliable. Criminal activity declined. Local governments functioned efficiently. Refugees received protection. Infrastructure projects advanced ahead of schedule. For many worlds, it felt like witnessing a miracle. For Victor Von Doom, it felt like basic responsibility. The first major shift occurred within the Mid-Rim. A prosperous agricultural system called Dorvala had remained officially loyal to the Republic throughout the war. Years earlier, senators promised protection against pirate incursions threatening local shipping lanes. Military reinforcements never arrived. Appeals for assistance disappeared into bureaucratic channels. Repeated requests produced only delays. Then Doom's forces appeared, not as conquerors, not as invaders, as problem solvers. Within 3 weeks, pirate activity vanished entirely. Smuggling networks operating within the sector were dismantled. Trade routes reopened. Agricultural exports resumed normal distribution. Local markets stabilized. No occupation followed. No demands emerged. No taxes increased. The results spoke for themselves. 3 months later, Dorvala formally petitioned to join Doom's growing alliance. The announcement stunned Republic officials. The system had not been conquered. It had chosen. That distinction terrified politicians far more than military aggression ever could. Because military threats united populations. Successful alternatives divided them. Soon similar events unfolded elsewhere. A mining sector abandoned by both Republic and Separatist authorities requested assistance after criminal syndicates seized control of local operations. Doom responded immediately. Security forces restored order. Corrupt executives disappeared from positions of authority. Worker protections improved dramatically. The sector joined voluntarily. Then another followed. Then another. The pattern accelerated. World after world began asking difficult questions. Why remain loyal to governments that consistently failed them? Why continue supporting leaders incapable of providing stability? Why endure endless promises when visible results existed elsewhere? The answers became increasingly difficult for both sides of the Clone Wars to provide. On Coruscant, panic spread quietly through political circles. Officially, Doom's expansion remained relatively small compared to the vast territory controlled by the Republic. Unofficially, senators recognized a growing crisis. Influence operated differently than military power. Influence spread through ideas. Ideas ignored borders. Entire Senate committees convened emergency sessions. Intelligence reports flooded across secure channels. Economic analysts studied alarming trends. More systems requested information regarding Doom's administration. More trade organizations pursued partnerships. More citizens openly praised policies implemented beyond Republic jurisdiction. The phenomenon possessed a dangerous simplicity. People compared outcomes. The comparisons rarely favored Coruscant. Within the Senate itself, divisions emerged rapidly. Some argued Doom represented an authoritarian threat requiring immediate action. Others questioned whether military confrontation might worsen the situation. A smaller but increasingly vocal group raised uncomfortable possibilities. Perhaps Victor Von Doom was succeeding because he was right. Those conversations spread like disease. Palpatine monitored every development carefully. Publicly, he expressed concern regarding regional instability. Privately, he understood the deeper threat. The Clone Wars depended upon dissatisfaction. The Republic's gradual decline justified increasingly extreme measures. Fear encouraged populations to accept stronger central authority. Victor Von Doom disrupted that equation. He offered security without chaos, order without fear, strength without visible oppression. The combination threatened years of carefully orchestrated manipulation. For the first time in decades, Palpatine encountered a rival who challenged his objectives not through opposition but through competence. Meanwhile, the Separatists faced their own crisis. Count Dooku reviewed reports from independent systems abandoning Confederacy influence in favor of neutrality under Doom's protection. Corporate leaders demanded responses. Trade Federation executives complained constantly. Banking clan representatives warned of dangerous precedents. Dooku listened silently, because he understood something they did not. Military victories could be countered. Political movements could be undermined. Victor Von Doom represented something more complicated. Legitimacy. Every success strengthened his reputation. Every successful world encouraged others. Every fulfilled promise weakened alternative authorities. The process resembled gravity. Slow, steady, unstoppable. Across the galaxy, ordinary beings noticed. Merchants noticed. Farmers noticed. Soldiers noticed. Even clones noticed. On distant battlefronts, Republic troopers stationed near systems aligned with Doom occasionally encountered local populations. The experiences proved unsettling. Many expected oppression. Instead, they found functioning communities, prosperous settlements, citizens who genuinely supported their government. The contradiction lingered in countless minds, particularly among officers forced to explain why those worlds appeared more stable than many Republic territories. The answer remained elusive. Elsewhere, another group watched developments with increasing fascination. The Mandalorians. Historically, Mandalorians respected strength above nearly all else. Not brute strength alone. Competence, discipline, leadership. The ability to impose order upon chaos and accept responsibility for outcomes. Victor Von Doom possessed all those qualities. Clan leaders who initially regarded him as merely another ambitious outsider began reassessing their opinions. Trade agreements expanded. Military cooperation increased. Mutual respect developed gradually. Neither side trusted easily. Both understood power. That common understanding created foundations stronger than politics. As alliances expanded, Doom himself remained remarkably unchanged. That fact surprised many observers. History suggested successful leaders grew arrogant. Expansion encouraged excess. Influence corrupted judgment. Wealth created complacency. Victor Von Doom displayed none of those tendencies. If anything, he became more demanding. Not of others. Of himself. Every newly aligned world increased responsibility. Every alliance created obligations. Every promise required fulfillment. Failure became less acceptable because more lives depended upon success. The burden would have crushed lesser leaders. Doom simply adapted. Day after day, he moved between systems addressing crises, negotiating disputes, inspecting infrastructure, reviewing military preparedness, and evaluating economic development. His schedule bordered upon impossible. Yet he maintained it relentlessly. Because unlike many rulers, Victor Von Doom genuinely believed leadership represented service. The irony would have amused anyone familiar with his reputation in another universe. Then came the moment everything changed. The system of Brental 4 occupied one of the most strategically valuable locations in the galaxy. Trade routes intersected throughout the sector. Political influence extended far beyond local borders. Both Republic and Separatist interests considered it essential. When unrest erupted there, neither side anticipated the outcome. Local leaders requested assistance. Not from Coruscant. Not from the Confederacy. From Victor Von Doom. The request became public. The reaction was explosive. News networks spread the story instantly. Political commentators debated implications endlessly. Analysts warned of growing instability. Citizens across countless worlds watched carefully. Because Brental represented something different. This was not an isolated frontier settlement. Not a forgotten colony. Not a vulnerable mining world. This was a major galactic power center openly seeking Doom's assistance. The symbolism alone shook governments. Doom responded personally. His arrival drew enormous attention. Media coverage followed every development. Entire populations watched as he negotiated local disputes, stabilized economic concerns, addressed security challenges, and proposed practical solutions. Within weeks, conditions improved dramatically. Public approval surged. Support for traditional authorities collapsed. The message echoed across hyperspace. If Doom could succeed here, perhaps he could succeed anywhere. The phrase spread rapidly. Republic officials hated hearing it. Separatist leaders hated it even more. Yet neither could effectively challenge the argument. Reality provided too much evidence. Months passed. More worlds joined. More alliances formed. More systems embraced neutrality beneath Doom's protection. Maps began changing. Political calculations shifted. Trade networks adapted. The galaxy slowly recognized a truth nobody had anticipated. A third power had emerged. Not Republic. Not Separatist. Something entirely different. An empire born not through conquest but consent. An empire built not upon fear but performance. An empire centered around a single extraordinary individual. The implications reached far beyond politics. Because as Victor Von Doom's influence expanded, the hidden war beneath the visible one intensified. Darth Sidious watched years of planning encounter unforeseen resistance. Count Dooku observed populations drifting beyond Confederacy control. The Jedi sensed disturbances moving through currents of destiny. Pieces moved. Paths diverged. History itself began bending away from familiar outcomes. One evening, as twin suns vanished beyond distant mountains on a newly aligned frontier world, Victor Von Doom stood upon a balcony overlooking a thriving city illuminated by countless lights. Airspeeders crossed the night sky. Factories operated peacefully. Markets remained open. Families walked streets without fear. Below him stretched living proof that alternatives existed. That civilizations did not need corruption. That order did not require tyranny. That strength could serve rather than exploit. The sight should have brought satisfaction. Instead, Doom felt something else. Concern. Because success attracted attention. And somewhere within the shadows of the Republic, unseen enemies were undoubtedly preparing their response. The galaxy had accepted the rise of Victor Von Doom. Soon it would discover how far others were willing to go to stop him. The galaxy had spent generations convincing itself that freedom and stability could coexist effortlessly. Politicians repeated the belief because it sounded noble. Senators built entire careers around it. Citizens embraced it because the alternative seemed uncomfortable. Even the Jedi, despite their wisdom, often assumed civilization naturally moved toward harmony when guided by good intentions. Reality rarely proved so accommodating. Victor Von Doom understood that truth better than most. As his influence expanded across the galaxy, the systems under his protection continued flourishing in ways that embarrassed both the Republic and the Separatists. Crime rates dropped dramatically. Infrastructure expanded faster than economic projections deemed possible. Trade routes remained secure. Corruption declined. Food shortages disappeared. Entire worlds that had spent decades trapped in stagnation suddenly experienced unprecedented growth. The results became impossible to deny. Yet success carried consequences. Every solution created new questions. Every improvement exposed uncomfortable truths. And increasingly, those truths forced the galaxy to confront a dilemma it had avoided for centuries. What was the actual price of freedom? The question first emerged publicly on Coruscant. Within the Senate, debates surrounding Doom's growing dominion had evolved beyond simple political concern. Nobody could honestly argue his territories were failing. Intelligence reports confirmed consistent improvements. Economic analysts verified remarkable growth. Independent observers returned from aligned systems with stories that sounded almost impossible. The problem was not that Doom's methods failed. The problem was that they worked. Senators found themselves trapped by reality. Every criticism encountered evidence to the contrary. Accusations of tyranny met populations expressing genuine support. Warnings about oppression encountered worlds enjoying greater prosperity than many Republic sectors. Predictions of collapse consistently failed. The contradiction frustrated everyone, particularly those who depended upon maintaining existing power structures. Within one especially contentious Senate session, representatives spent hours debating a newly released economic report comparing living conditions across several regions. The findings proved devastating. Multiple systems aligned with Doom outperformed nearby Republic territories in nearly every measurable category. Security, infrastructure, education, healthcare, resource distribution. The statistics themselves were not the most troubling aspect. Public reaction was. Ordinary citizens across countless worlds began asking questions. Simple questions. Dangerous questions. If Doom could accomplish these things, why couldn't the Republic? Why did prosperity arrive faster under one man than under an institution governing thousands of systems? Why were citizens experiencing more stability outside traditional political structures? The questions spread faster than any official response, because people already suspected the answers. Meanwhile, far from Coruscant's political chambers, the consequences of Doom's success became increasingly visible on the ground. A frontier world called Carice had spent decades suffering from raids conducted by organized pirate fleets. Local governments attempted negotiations. Republic authorities promised assistance repeatedly. Military deployments arrived occasionally but never remained long enough to address the root problem. Everything changed after joining Doom's alliance. The pirate threat vanished within months. Not diminished. Vanished. Trade flourished. Agricultural exports expanded. Population growth accelerated. The world transformed almost overnight. Citizens celebrated. Families prospered. Businesses expanded. By every practical measure, life improved dramatically. Yet beneath the success lay an uncomfortable reality. The pirates had not surrendered. They had not been rehabilitated. They had not received opportunities for reform. Victor Von Doom had simply removed them. Completely, efficiently, permanently. The details remained classified. Most citizens preferred not to ask questions. That preference disturbed many observers, especially the Jedi. Within the Jedi Temple, discussions regarding Doom had become increasingly complex. Earlier concerns focused primarily on political implications. Now deeper philosophical issues emerged. Masters who once dismissed him as merely another ambitious ruler found themselves confronting more difficult realities. The Force itself offered no clear answers. Systems under Doom's protection genuinely experienced less suffering. That mattered. Yet the methods used to achieve those outcomes often generated unease. That mattered too. Obi-Wan Kenobi became one of the Order's most thoughtful voices on the subject. Unlike many critics, he had spent time observing Doom directly. He understood the man's intelligence, determination, and sincerity. He also understood the dangers hidden within absolute certainty, because certainty often led individuals to believe they alone possessed correct answers. History rarely rewarded such thinking. One evening, after reviewing reports from several aligned worlds, Obi-Wan found himself staring across Coruscant's endless skyline while contemplating a troubling possibility. What if Doom genuinely wanted what was best for people? The question sounded harmless. It was not. History contained countless examples of leaders convinced they acted for the greater good. Some became heroes. Others became monsters. The difference often emerged too late. Elsewhere, Yoda wrestled with similar concerns. The ancient Jedi sensed no great darkness within Victor Von Doom. No corruption comparable to the Sith. No hunger for destruction. No pleasure in suffering. Yet something still troubled him. The Force flowed naturally through life. Life contained uncertainty. Contained mistakes. Contained freedom. Doom sought control. Not malicious control. Not cruel control. But control nonetheless. And excessive control always carried risks. The challenge lay in explaining those risks to populations experiencing tangible benefits. Fear of future possibilities mattered little compared to present prosperity. Across the galaxy, ordinary citizens reached their own conclusions. For many, the debate seemed absurd. They cared less about political theory than practical reality. Parents cared about safe streets. Merchants cared about reliable trade routes. Workers cared about stable employment. Farmers cared about predictable harvests. Doom delivered those things. The Republic frequently did not. The comparison felt straightforward. That simplicity fueled his continued growth. Yet not everyone embraced the transformation. Among smugglers, bounty hunters, criminal syndicates, and various organizations operating beyond traditional law, resentment grew rapidly. Doom's territories offered little room for exploitation. Corruption became difficult. Criminal enterprises found themselves dismantled systematically. Entire networks lost influence. Entire fortunes vanished. Enemies accumulated. Victor Von Doom expected this. Indeed, he considered it evidence of success. The opinions of criminals rarely concerned him. Unfortunately, the distinction between criminal and dissident sometimes proved less clear. That ambiguity created problems. A notable example emerged on a world called Valtar Prime. Local authorities uncovered a movement opposing integration into Doom's expanding dominion. Organizers criticized increasing centralization. They argued local autonomy was slowly disappearing. They warned citizens against becoming dependent upon a single leader. Some accusations contained exaggerations. Others contained uncomfortable truths. The movement remained peaceful. Initially. Then violence erupted. Several bombings targeted infrastructure projects. Security personnel died. Civilians suffered casualties. Doom responded immediately. Investigations began. Suspects were identified. Press followed. The violence stopped quickly. Too quickly. Questions emerged regarding due process. Evidence remained classified. Trials occurred behind closed doors. Public order returned. Public trust remained divided. Supporters praised decisive action. Critics warned of dangerous precedents. The debate spread far beyond Valtar Prime. For the first time, meaningful opposition to Doom gained visibility. Not because conditions worsened, because success itself created new concerns. As these discussions unfolded, Darth Sidious watched carefully from the shadows. Unlike many adversaries, he recognized opportunities hidden within complexity. Victor Von Doom's greatest strength had always been competence. Now competence generated vulnerabilities. Not military vulnerabilities. Moral vulnerabilities. Every difficult decision created controversy. Every compromise alienated someone. Every act of authority raised questions. Sidious understood those dynamics intimately. After all, he had built an entire galactic crisis around them. Yet despite growing tensions, one crucial problem remained. Doom never behaved hypocritically. That frustrated his enemies immensely. When he exercised authority, he admitted doing so. When sacrifices became necessary, he acknowledged them openly. When criticism emerged, he rarely concealed reality behind comforting rhetoric. The honesty proved remarkably effective. People might disagree with him. They rarely doubted his sincerity. And sincerity generated loyalty stronger than propaganda. Months later, a remarkable event highlighted the growing philosophical divide spreading across civilization. Representatives from several Republic worlds petitioned to join Doom's alliance. Not frontier colonies. Not neglected sectors. Established Republic systems. The request shocked everyone. The worlds cited familiar reasons. Security. Economic growth. Administrative efficiency. Public confidence. Yet beneath those practical concerns lay something deeper. A growing belief that freedom without stability possessed limited value. The statement ignited furious debate throughout the galaxy. What did freedom actually mean if governments could not protect citizens? What value did democratic representation possess if institutions remained ineffective? Were people truly free when corruption dictated outcomes regardless of elections? The question struck at the heart of galactic identity. No easy answers existed. Even Doom himself recognized the complexity. One night, aboard his flagship while traveling between allied systems, Victor stood alone within a quiet observation chamber. Stars drifted beyond massive transparent steel windows. The hum of advanced machinery echoed softly through surrounding corridors. The galaxy appeared peaceful from this distance. Simple. Ordered. Reality was rarely either. For all his confidence, Doom understood something many supporters ignored. Perfect order did not exist. Every decision carried costs. Every system possessed flaws. Every leader eventually faced choices where all available options inflicted harm somewhere. The difference lay in accepting responsibility. Most leaders hid from consequences. Victor Von Doom never had. Never would. Yet even he could not escape difficult truths. The larger his dominion became, the greater those truths grew. Because every new world increased responsibility. Every citizen increased obligation. Every success increased expectations. The burden expanded relentlessly. And somewhere within the darkness between stars, hidden enemies waited patiently. They understood something many admirers did not. Victor Von Doom could solve countless problems. But eventually he would encounter one challenge no ruler could ever fully defeat. Human nature itself. As hyperspace stretched endlessly beyond the flagship's windows, Doom contemplated a future growing more complicated with each passing day. The galaxy increasingly viewed him as a solution. That perception worried him more than most realized. Because solutions became expectations. Expectations became dependence. And dependence often transformed even the noblest ambitions into something far more dangerous. The empire of one continued growing. The question was no longer whether Victor Von Doom could bring order to the galaxy. The question was what the galaxy might become if he succeeded. The moment Victor Von Doom confirmed the identity of Darth Sidious, the future of the galaxy changed forever. For years the Sith Lord had operated behind layers of deception so intricate that even the Jedi Order failed to see the truth standing directly before them. Entire governments moved according to his design. Wars erupted because he desired them. Alliances formed because he permitted them. The Republic and the Confederacy bled each other dry while a single hidden hand manipulated every victory and every defeat from the shadows. Count Dooku had served as the visible architect of Separatist rebellion, but Dooku had never been the true mastermind. General Grievous commanded armies, yet Grievous remained little more than a weapon. Senators argued over legislation while never realizing one of their own colleagues secretly guided events toward catastrophe. For decades, Palpatine had remained untouchable. For decades, he had controlled the board. Victor Von Doom was the first individual who approached the problem differently. The Jedi searched for darkness through the Force. Doom searched for patterns. And patterns never lied. The evidence had accumulated gradually. Financial transfers, military deployments, political appointments, emergency legislation, Senate voting records, communications intercepted from both Republic and Separatist channels. Individually, each clue appeared insignificant. Together they formed a picture so obvious that Doom almost found it insulting. Someone benefited from every stage of the conflict. Someone gained authority whenever fear increased. Someone strengthened their political position regardless of which side achieved victory. Again and again, every trail led toward one individual. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. Not the public figure. Not the smiling politician adored by billions. The man behind the mask. The architect hidden beneath the performance. The Sith Lord. Doom stood within the command center of his flagship while thousands of streams of intelligence data floated before him as glowing holographic projections. Entire walls shimmered with information gathered across years of investigation. Around him, advisors watched silently as Doom assembled the final pieces. There was no uncertainty left. No remaining doubt. Palpatine and Sidious were the same being. The Clone Wars existed because he created them. The Republic's collapse had been planned from the beginning. Order, chaos, victory, defeat, rebellion, loyalty, every element served a single design. Most people would have felt outrage. Doom felt admiration. Not for the evil. For the execution. The scale of the operation bordered upon genius. Only an extraordinary mind could orchestrate a deception spanning thousands of star systems while manipulating countless powerful individuals without detection. Unfortunately for Sidious, extraordinary minds recognized one another. And Victor Von Doom had finally arrived at the center of the maze. Far away on Coruscant, Palpatine sensed danger before receiving confirmation. The Force whispered warnings. Small disturbances at first. Subtle currents shifting beneath the surface of events. Then stronger signals emerged. Republic officials vanished. Several intelligence assets stopped reporting. Financial networks tied secretly to Sith operations disappeared overnight. Entire layers of carefully constructed security began collapsing. Someone was moving against him. Someone intelligent enough to target critical vulnerabilities. Someone who already understood far too much. Palpatine stood alone within his private office overlooking Coruscant's endless skyline. Millions of lights stretched across the horizon like artificial stars. Air traffic moved in brilliant rivers between towering structures. Normally the view brought satisfaction. Tonight it brought concern. For the first time in many years, he encountered an opponent who could challenge him outside the realm of the Force. Doom represented something rare. Not merely power. Not merely intelligence. Control. Victor Von Doom controlled events through competence rather than manipulation. He inspired loyalty through results rather than deception. Worlds followed him willingly because he delivered prosperity instead of promises. Palpatine understood how dangerous that combination could become. Especially if the truth emerged publicly. The Sith Lord had spent years cultivating trust. Doom threatened to destroy it within days. The confrontation began quietly. No fleets moved. No armies marched. No public declarations occurred. Instead, a hidden war erupted across the shadows of civilization. Agents vanished. Secret facilities burned. Encrypted databases disappeared. Assassins sent against Doom never returned. Spy networks painstakingly developed by Sith operatives collapsed one after another. Each side attacked indirectly while preparing for something larger. The galaxy remained unaware. Most citizens continued living normally. Most senators continued debating legislation. Most Jedi remained focused upon the broader conflict consuming the Republic. Only a handful understood what was unfolding. Among them were Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin Skywalker. The Jedi Council gathered in secrecy after receiving evidence supplied by Doom's investigators. What they reviewed shattered assumptions maintained for more than a decade. The truth proved devastating. The Sith had not infiltrated the Republic. The Sith had become the Republic. Palpatine's influence touched every level of government. Emergency powers, military expansion, political appointments, judicial decisions, economic restructuring. The realization struck the Jedi like a physical blow. They had searched for a hidden enemy while serving him directly. They had protected the institution he intended to corrupt. They had fought a war designed by the very Sith they hunted. Even Windu struggled to process the implications. Yoda remained silent for a long time after examining the evidence. The ancient master had witnessed countless conflicts throughout his life. Few revelations matched this one. Meanwhile, Doom accelerated his campaign. Unlike the Jedi, he understood hesitation would prove fatal. Palpatine possessed too much influence. Too many loyalists. Too many contingency plans. Every hour increased the probability of escape. Every delay strengthened the Sith position. The hunt therefore intensified. Across the galaxy, Doom's forces began systematically dismantling the remaining infrastructure supporting Sidious's operation. Banking institutions secretly funding Separatist activity found themselves exposed. Corporate allies suddenly faced investigations. Hidden communications hubs disappeared under precision strikes. The operation resembled surgery. Efficient, methodical, relentless. Each move narrowed the Sith Lord's options. Each success tightened the noose. For perhaps the first time in his life, Palpatine found himself reacting instead of planning. The experience infuriated him. Years of preparation evaporated with astonishing speed. The future he intended to create slipped further away each day. And at the center of everything stood Victor Von Doom. The irony did not escape him. The Jedi had never truly threatened his rise. Their philosophy limited them. Their morality restrained them. Their bureaucracy slowed them. Doom possessed none of those weaknesses. He identified a problem, then solved it. No hesitation. No endless debate. No concern for political sensitivities. Palpatine began realizing a horrifying truth. If Doom gained sufficient momentum, the Empire might never exist. Order 66 might never occur. The Jedi might survive. History itself could be rewritten. That possibility could not be allowed. Thus, the Sith abandoned subtlety. The first direct strike came against one of Doom's primary command facilities located near the edge of the Mid-Rim. A coordinated attack involving elite Separatist assets and Sith operatives nearly succeeded in destroying the installation. Nearly. Doom anticipated the move. Defenses activated instantly. The attackers encountered prepared kill zones, hidden shield networks, and automated weapon systems specifically designed to counter overwhelming assaults. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. The casualties lasted forever. By the time the smoke cleared, the facility remained operational while the attacking force ceased to exist. The message reached Palpatine immediately. Victor Von Doom was finished playing defense. The next phase began with a transmission. Every major government in the galaxy received it simultaneously. Every military command, every Senate office, every Jedi enclave, every major news network. The broadcast contained evidence, not accusations, not speculation, evidence, financial records, secret communications, witness testimony, verified intelligence. Enough information to connect Supreme Chancellor Palpatine directly to Darth Sidious. Enough information to destroy decades of deception. The galaxy erupted. Coruscant descended into chaos almost instantly. Senators demanded answers. Military officials questioned orders. Citizens flooded communication networks. Entire sectors watched in disbelief as the foundation of galactic politics cracked apart. Some refused to believe it. Others accepted the truth immediately. Regardless of personal opinion, uncertainty spread everywhere. That uncertainty proved catastrophic for Sidious. Because fear worked only when directed. Confusion weakened control. The carefully maintained illusion began collapsing. Palpatine responded by abandoning his public identity entirely. There was no longer value in maintaining appearances. The mask had shattered. The Emperor hidden beneath finally emerged. Within secret facilities scattered throughout the core worlds, Loyalists activated emergency protocols prepared years earlier. Clone commanders received classified orders. Separatist assets shifted positions. Dark side operatives mobilized. The galaxy stood on the edge of civil war within civil war. And everyone understood the next confrontation would determine everything. Doom understood it as well. Standing aboard his flagship while fleets assembled around him, Victor watched tactical projections covering enormous holoscreens. Hundreds of systems balanced on the edge of chaos. Thousands of decisions remained unresolved. The fate of civilization increasingly depended upon a single outcome. Sidious must fall. Not because Doom hated him. Not because the Jedi demanded it. Not because the Republic deserved saving. Because Palpatine represented the ultimate expression of everything Doom opposed. Manipulation over competence. Fear over stability. Deception over truth. The Sith Lord sought power through chaos. Victor sought order through strength. Their philosophies could never coexist. One would inevitably destroy the other. Across the stars, military forces began moving toward positions that would soon become battlefields. Republic commanders chose sides. Separatist leaders panicked. Neutral systems prepared defenses. The galaxy held its breath. After years of shadows, the masterminds finally stood exposed. No more intermediaries. No more hidden games. No more secret wars. Victor Von Doom and Darth Sidious now understood exactly who their enemy was. The confrontation both had anticipated for months had finally arrived. And somewhere deep within the Force itself, currents of destiny shifted. Because history no longer belonged to Palpatine alone. For the first time since the Clone Wars began, the future had become uncertain. The Sith Lord intended to claim a throne. Victor Von Doom intended to prevent it. Only one vision of the galaxy could survive. And the final battle for civilization was about to begin. The final battle for the future of the galaxy did not begin with fleets exchanging fire across the stars. It began with a choice. Across countless worlds, billions waited to discover what shape civilization would take when the dust finally settled. The Clone Wars had already consumed years of suffering. Entire generations had grown up knowing only conflict. Republic citizens feared the collapse of order. Separatist worlds feared conquest. The Jedi feared the extinction of everything they had sworn to protect. Hidden among those fears was a deeper uncertainty that reached into the heart of history itself. For the first time in decades, no one knew what tomorrow would bring. The Republic stood wounded. The Separatists stood fractured. The Jedi stood diminished. The Sith stood exposed. And Victor Von Doom stood at the center of it all. His fleets occupied strategic hyperspace routes stretching across enormous regions of the galaxy. Independent systems that had once existed beyond the attention of Coruscant now looked toward Doom's growing dominion as a source of stability. Smugglers, merchants, frontier settlers, Mandalorian clans, and forgotten colonies had become part of a vast network united not by ideology but by results. Where Doom ruled, piracy declined. Where Doom governed, corruption vanished. Where Doom intervened, infrastructure improved. Entire sectors had witnessed prosperity they had not experienced in generations. Yet even among his supporters, uncertainty remained. Because Victor Von Doom was still Victor Von Doom. He was brilliant. He was capable. He was effective. He was also a man who believed he knew what was best for everyone. History had repeatedly demonstrated how dangerous such certainty could become. Across Coruscant, panic spread through the highest levels of government as Palpatine abandoned all remaining pretense. Emergency powers became irrelevant once the Chancellor openly embraced his identity as Darth Sidious. The mask no longer served a purpose. His enemies already knew the truth. Now he would claim victory through power instead of deception. The transformation was immediate. Political allies became instruments. Secret loyalists emerged from hiding. Entire security forces received new orders. The dark side of the Force surged through the capital like an approaching storm. Senators fled. Military commanders scrambled to maintain control. The Republic began tearing itself apart. Deep within the Jedi Temple, Yoda stood before the great windows overlooking Coruscant's endless skyline. Thousands of aircraft streaked through the night while distant emergency sirens echoed between towering structures. The ancient master could feel the Force shifting around a crossroads unlike any he had witnessed in centuries. For generations, the Jedi believed the struggle between light and dark defined the destiny of civilization. Now another possibility existed. Victor Von Doom represented neither tradition. Neither Jedi restraint nor Sith ambition fully described him. He stood outside the philosophies that had shaped galactic history. That fact frightened many members of the Order. Yet it also offered hope. Because sometimes salvation arrived from unexpected directions. Elsewhere within the temple, Anakin Skywalker felt the same uncertainty. The young Jedi had spent years watching events unfold differently from the future Palpatine intended. Doom's arrival altered countless outcomes. Friendships survived that once would have died. Truths emerged that would have remained hidden. The galaxy itself seemed to be moving toward a future no prophecy had predicted. For much of his life, Anakin had searched for certainty. Now he discovered something more valuable. Freedom. The freedom to choose his own path. The freedom to define his own destiny. The freedom to become something other than what others expected. Those lessons would soon matter more than anyone realized. The confrontation began above Coruscant. Massive fleets emerged from hyperspace in numbers that transformed space itself into a battlefield. Republic warships loyal to surviving institutions joined formations alongside forces previously aligned with Doom. Independent defense fleets arrived from systems determined to prevent Sith rule. Even former Separatist commanders contributed vessels after learning the full truth behind the Clone Wars. Against them stood the forces of Sidious. Fanatical loyalists. Hidden military assets. Secret fleets prepared for precisely this moment. The battle erupted with extraordinary violence. Turbolasers transformed darkness into oceans of fire. Fighter squadrons swarmed through clouds of debris. Capital ships shattered beneath concentrated bombardment. Entire formations vanished in brilliant explosions that illuminated the planet below. From the surface, citizens watched the heavens burn. Many believed they were witnessing the end of civilization. In a sense, they were. The old civilization was dying. Something new would emerge from the ashes. The question remained what form it would take. Victor Von Doom led the assault personally. His flagship cut through enemy formations with ruthless precision while advanced weapons systems dismantled opposition fleet by fleet. Unlike many rulers, Doom never demanded sacrifices he would not make himself. He stood at the front. He accepted the same risks faced by his soldiers. That willingness inspired loyalty beyond anything propaganda could achieve. As the battle intensified, a path opened toward the heart of Sidious's defenses. Doom took it immediately. He knew the truth. This war would not be decided by fleets. It would be decided by two men. One believed fear created order. The other believed competence created order. One ruled through manipulation. The other ruled through authority. One sought absolute control through deception. The other sought absolute control through strength. Their collision had become inevitable the moment Victor entered the galaxy. The final confrontation unfolded within the shattered remains of a Republic command complex overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape. Broken transparent steel littered the floors. Emergency lights cast crimson shadows across ruined chambers. Smoke drifted through damaged corridors. The distant thunder of battle echoed continuously. At the center of it all stood Darth Sidious. No longer disguised. No longer pretending. Power radiated from him like living darkness. The Force twisted around his presence. Hatred. Ambition. Rage. Fear. Every destructive emotion surged through him simultaneously. He had become the embodiment of everything the Sith represented. Victor Von Doom entered without hesitation. Green energy reflected across polished metal armor. His cloak moved through the smoke like a banner carried by destiny itself. For several moments neither man spoke. Words had become unnecessary. They understood one another perfectly. The battle that followed would become legend. Force lightning erupted first. Entire sections of the structure disintegrated beneath its fury. Doom's armor absorbed enormous amounts of energy before redirecting portions through sophisticated defensive systems. The resulting explosion shattered walls and sent debris cascading into the city below. Sidious attacked with the full strength of the dark side. Doom responded with technology, strategy, and sheer determination. The clash shook the building. The clash shook the Force. The clash shook history. Neither yielded. Neither retreated. Both understood the stakes. Outside, fleets continued fighting. Inside, the future of civilization balanced upon a knife's edge. Sidious possessed incredible power. Yet power alone rarely guaranteed victory against Victor Von Doom. Because Doom prepared. Over months of investigation he had studied Sith techniques. Over years of conquest he had learned how to counter opponents stronger than himself. Every contingency, every possibility, every vulnerability had been analyzed repeatedly. He entered the battle knowing exactly what he faced. That preparation gradually shifted momentum. The Sith Lord remained terrifying. He was no longer unpredictable. For the first time, Sidious found himself confronting an enemy immune to intimidation. The realization weakened him. Not physically. Psychologically. Because fear had always been one of his greatest weapons. Victor Von Doom simply refused to feel it. As the battle reached its climax, the Force itself seemed to hold its breath. Anakin arrived. So did Obi-Wan. So did Yoda. Not as conquerors. Not as executioners. As witnesses. The future belonged to more than one individual. It belonged to everyone. That truth became the defining difference between Doom and Sidious. Both desired order. Only one believed civilization existed to serve the ruler. The other increasingly understood that rulers existed to serve civilization. Victor had changed during his time in the galaxy. Slowly, reluctantly, but undeniably. The people who followed him had altered him as much as he altered them. He still valued strength. He still valued authority. Yet he had begun recognizing something the Sith never could. Control alone was insufficient. Fear alone was insufficient. A stable future required trust, required participation, required hope. The final blow came not through overwhelming power but through understanding. Sidious remained trapped within a philosophy that viewed every relationship as domination. Doom had evolved beyond that limitation. When the confrontation ended, Darth Sidious fell. The dark side storm consuming Coruscant collapsed with him. Silence followed. Then relief. Across the galaxy, billions learned the war was over. The Sith conspiracy had failed. The Empire would never rise. History itself had changed. Yet the most surprising development came afterward. Victor Von Doom possessed the opportunity to seize absolute power. No force remained capable of stopping him. His fleets dominated strategic sectors. His popularity continued growing. Entire systems would have accepted him as supreme ruler. Many expected exactly that outcome. Instead, Doom did something nobody predicted. He refused the throne. Not because he lacked ambition. Not because he doubted his ability. Because he finally recognized a truth he once rejected. No single individual, regardless of brilliance, should determine the destiny of trillions forever. The galaxy required leadership. The galaxy required order. But it also required accountability. Thus a third path emerged. Not the republic that had failed. Not the empire that never existed. Something new. A stronger federation of worlds protected by institutions capable of resisting corruption without surrendering freedom entirely. The Jedi survived. The Republic transformed. The Sith vanished into history. And Victor Von Doom became something unexpected. Not emperor. Not conqueror. Not dictator. A guardian standing outside the system he helped create. A figure feared by enemies and respected by allies. A living reminder that civilization required vigilance as much as liberty. Years later, historians would debate whether Doom saved the galaxy or merely changed it. Perhaps both were true. What remained beyond dispute was this: Palpatine never achieved his empire. Darth Vader never existed. The Clone Wars ended differently than destiny intended, and the future belonged not to Jedi or Sith, but to a third path neither side had ever imagined. A path forged by the one man stubborn enough to challenge an entire galaxy and brilliant enough to change it. The Force had always been described as the energy that bound the galaxy together, an invisible current connecting every living being across the stars. For thousands of years, Jedi and Sith alike believed they understood its nature. They believed history revolved around their eternal struggle. Light against dark, order against chaos, master against apprentice. Yet the arrival of Victor Von Doom shattered assumptions that had survived for generations. The galaxy never received the empire Palpatine intended to build. The Jedi Order never suffered the devastation of Order 66. The Republic never collapsed beneath the weight of a manufactured war. Most importantly of all, Anakin Skywalker never became Darth Vader. The Sith Grand Plan, crafted over decades and executed with near-perfect precision, unraveled because one man from another reality recognized the pattern of tyranny hidden beneath political theater. Doom had witnessed similar ambitions countless times in other worlds. He understood that civilizations rarely died through sudden catastrophe. They died through manipulation, fear, and the surrender of responsibility. His greatest victory was not defeating Darth Sidious. His greatest victory was forcing the galaxy to confront uncomfortable truths before it was too late. The Jedi learned that good intentions alone could not preserve peace. The Senate learned that freedom without accountability invited corruption. The Republic learned that endless bureaucracy could become just as dangerous as open tyranny. Even Doom himself changed. Victor entered the galaxy convinced that only absolute authority could create lasting order. He departed the conflict understanding that power without restraint inevitably creates new forms of oppression. Though he never abandoned his belief in strong leadership, he discovered that stability required something even greater than strength. It required trust. Across the years that followed, worlds rebuilt. Former enemies cooperated. The scars of the Clone Wars slowly healed. New institutions emerged from the lessons learned during the crisis. The Jedi Order adapted. The Republic reformed. The shadow of the Sith faded into history. And somewhere beyond the great halls of government and the chambers of Jedi Masters, stories continued spreading. Stories about an armored ruler from another universe. Stories about the man who challenged the Sith. Stories about the outsider who changed destiny itself. Some called him a hero. Others called him a tyrant who chose not to rule. Many called him a legend. Victor Von Doom cared little for any of those titles. Because in the end, the galaxy was no longer his responsibility. It had become something capable of guiding its own future. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of all.
The multiverse doesn't end here. New invasions, new empires, and new worlds collide daily. If you enjoy deep cinematic, what-if scenarios like this, subscribe and join Multiverse Galaxy If.